Hello, good day. Welcome to Readings in Philippine History. And for this lesson, we will talk about the meaning and relevance of history, distinction of primary and secondary sources, historical criticisms, and the different kinds of sources. So, definitely, this is the introductory part for this subject. Meaning of history. Defining history as a study or record of past human events does not give a complete and sufficient definition of the discipline. The working definitions of history offered by progressive historians were formed out of our constant search for national identity that may push for the development of national consciousness. Actually, the mere definition of history, the record of past events, does not give the complete definition. The Greek philosopher Aristotle used the word history, which meant a systematic account of a set of natural phenomena, whether or not chronological ordering was a factor in the account, and that usage, though rare, still prevails in English in the phrase natural history. History deals with the study of past events presented in chronological order and often with explanation. Others define it as his story and salaysay na may saysay. The Tagalog word of history is kasaysayan, but some of historians, Filipino historians, believe that kasaysayan is a more richer definition compared to history. It's not just a record of past human events, but salaysay, a detailed information, and saysay, it should have importance. Individuals who write about history are called historians. They seek to understand the present by examining what went before. They undertake arduous historical research to come up with a meaningful and organized reconstruction of the past. But whose past are we talking about? This is a basic question that a historian needs to answer because this sets the purpose and framework of a historical account. Hence, a salient feature of historical writing is the facility to give meaning and impart value to a particular group of people about their past. The practice of historical writing is called historiography. Traditional method in doing historical research focuses on gathering of documents from different libraries and archives to form a pool of evidence needed in making a descriptive or analytical narrative. However, modern historical writing does not only include examination of documents, but also the use of research methods from related areas of study, such as archaeology and geography. On the other hand, historiography refers to how, what, and why history is written. It is about the methods and practices used in producing history, the development of history as a discipline, or the philosophy or significance of historical writing. Moreover, according to Encyclopedia Britannica, historiography shortly defines as the writing of history based on the critical examination of sources, the selection of particular details from the authentic materials used in those sources, and the synthesis of the details into a narrative that stands the test of critical examination. The term historiography also refers to the theory and history of historical writing. In short, history is the study of past events, and historiography is the study of history. Sources of history. First, we have documents. So documents are handwritten, printed, designed, drawn, and other composed materials. For example, books, magazines, maps, journals, architectural perspectives, newspapers, paintings, advertisements, and photograph. The second one is archaeological records. Archaeological records preserve remains of human beings, their activities, and their environment. So under the said concept, we have fossils. Fossils are remains of animals and other organisms. The most significant excavated human remains include Kaloman's toe bone and the Tabon man's skull cap. Aside from human remains, other archaeological records are generally categorized as fossils and artifacts. Still under this concept, we have artifacts. It is the remnants of material culture. So, for example, from the left, we have the Manunggul jar and the history changer, the Laguna copper plate inscription. So, the last one is oral and video accounts. It is audiovisual documentation of people, events, and places. These are usually recorded in video and audio cassettes and compact disc. Aside from scholars, media people also use oral and video accounts as part of their news and public affairs work. So in contemporary time, we already know that aside from compact disc and audio cassettes, we have a lot of gadgets that can be used in documentation of people, events, and places. General kinds of historical sources. In the study of history, historians give interpretations of the past by investigating historical sources. No interpretations, however, shall be accepted unless it is supported by evidence from the examined sources. So the general kinds of historical sources are primary and secondary. So first, primary sources. These are documents, physical objects, and oral video accounts by an individual or group present at the time and place being described. So in layman's term, primary sources are original records of a certain event by people who have actually experienced or witnessed it. This may include original works such as letters, legislations, newspapers, articles, diaries, interviews, government documents, reports, photographs, literature, and other creative outputs. And secondary sources. These records are based on primary sources. They explain a certain event of the past through evaluation and interpretation of the records created during a historical period. This may include researches, textbooks, journals, commentaries, biographies, and criticism or reviews of literary and creative works. And now let's move on to historical criticism. Being able to identify primary sources from secondary sources is the first step of historical method. So by the way, what is historical method? Historical method refers to the process of probing primary sources that will be used in writing history. This includes source criticism, which studies the external and internal validity of sources. According to Gilbert J. Garrigan and Jean Delangles in 1946, source criticism asks the following questions. First, when was the source, written or unwritten, produced? Second, where was it produced? Third, by whom was it produced? Fourth, from what pre-existing material was it produced? Fifth, in what original form was it produced? And the last one, what is the evidential value of its contents? The first five questions are considered to be part of external criticism. Historians determine the authenticity of sources by examining the date, locale, creator, analysis, and integrity of the historical sources. This information must be consistent with each other. It means, for example, that the materials used in a source must match the time and place when it was produced. The last question is treated as internal criticism. As it helps the historians determine the credibility of the source, it studies the content of the source to know its truthfulness. For a source to be valid, its content must be reasonable and historically precise. One should now rely on a data which is not supported by evidence. In its general sense, external criticism answers concerns and questions pertinent to the authenticity of a historical source by identifying who composed the historical material, locating when and where the historical material was produced, and establishing the material's evidential value, while internal criticism deals with the credibility and reliability of the content of a given historical source. It focuses on understanding the substances and message that the historical material wants to convey by examining how the author framed the intent and meaning of a composed material. So, for example, we have the issue of the Code of Kalantiaw. For how many years na ituro ang Code of Kalantiaw na ilagay sa textbook, itinuro ng iba't ibang guro sa bawat paaralan. But later on, napatunayan na ang Kalantiaw Code ay isang malaking kasinungalingan sa kasaysayan. Newman in 2013 has explained the difference between external and internal criticism in the illustration on the next page. So mamaya ipapakita ko sa inyo. One of the disputed documents which may illustrate the application of external and internal criticism in the Code of Kalantiaw. The code was introduced as written by Dato Kalantiaw of Negros in 1433. However, in a study presented by William Henry Scott, it was found out to be a hoax, a forgery written by Jose E. Marco. And that's it. Thank you for listening. So that would be our first part for this lesson.